A few weeks ago, I literally drove hundreds of kilometers in a rented vehicle to get myself a Halolight TV from some lovely people in Fort Erie, Canada, who wanted to find it a good home. For a long time, I've wanted a Halolight in my collection, but frankly, they don't show up often. It's in beautiful, but not quite mint condition. So what is a Halolight TV? Halolight was the name of a series of 1950s televisions manufactured by Sylvania in the United States and Sylvania with Northern Electric in Canada, as opposed to other brands that tried to stick to traditional designs. Many Halolight TVs were mid-century modern. While not quite as mid-century modern as some of the late 1950s Predicta models, they had one unique feature. Marketed in a way to reduce contrast and eye strain while watching TV, they had an illuminated frame surrounding the TV screen.
The greatest television development since the big screen picture tube. Halolight. It's a soft frame of light around the screen to reduce that sharp contrast between the brilliant picture and the darker outside surroundings.
This was accomplished with a thin, cold cathode bulb behind a translucent bezel. This set is a 21C509M. That is a 21-inch black and white TV with the 532 chassis in a mahogany cabinet. In Canada, it was part of the 1957 lineup. Technical information on this TV can be found in Sam's PhotoFacts folder 0341-15N. It also appears in Bateman TV 12 from 1957. Unfortunately, neither resource is sufficient in itself. I'll have to depend on both resources because the original factory manual is unobtainable. While I really want to get this TV up and running, whether I work on it now depends on whether the picture tube is any good. If not, I'll have to source one, and I can't exactly order one from Amazon. The picture tube in the set appears to be original. It needs to be tested before I can go any further, and I can do that. I'll be using my Sencor CR70 Universal CRT Analyzer and Restorer. The first step is to look up the CRT to determine the socket adapter and test parameters. There's 21ATP4. As you see, it takes the universal adapter. That means that there's no plug that fits this tube in the kit, so I have to attach clips to each pin, which looks something like that. Those are the clips from the universal adapter, but now I'm ready to test it. Okay, and the CRT is lighting. I can see it lighting from here. You should see a red glow in the neck. If you don't see that, recheck your connections. Recheck the voltage. It would be very bad news if you were to discover that the filament was open. That would be the assumption if it doesn't light at all. What I would do is I would grab my ohmmeter and double check. But yeah, you got to see the filament glowing. I need to adjust this to 6.3. It's pretty close. 6.3. Heater cathode shorts. No shorts. Very good news. Grade 1 shorts. No shorts. Very good news. Cutoff. I need to put this into the middle of the box. This box over here. It's not drifting. Yes, it is drifting. That's probably because this tube hasn't been powered up in a very long time. We'll let it settle. Yeah, it's pretty good. Alrighty, I think it's settled. Emission is not bad. Okay. It's going down slightly. Not very much. Oh, but it's coming up. So not only is this a good tube, but from what the tester's predicting, it's got a lot of life left. The next step is to test all the tubes on the chassis. After testing all the tubes, this one here, the 3CS6, this one has one good section and one weak section. 18 of them in stock. I think I can find a better one. And this 3AV6, it has one good section and one bad section. I'll have to check to see how many of these I have in stock. I'm sure I have lots. This is the first TV I've come across where the tube layout diagram attached to the chassis is wrong. In the case of the 25DN6 found where the chart said 25CD6, that's no big deal, they're almost the same. However, I found a heptal-based hexode 3CS6 where a novel-based twin triode 7AU7 is supposed to be. That's very odd. And the VHF tuner is completely different, having only one tube, a 588 triode pentode RF amp, in common. Out of all the tubes, 2 of them are going to get replaced and the others are fine. Some of them, like this horizontal output, take a while to heat up, but that's okay. It still works. Before getting to the chassis, I wanted to get to the Halolight circuit, which I would have to take out anyway if I was taking out the chassis. It consists, in this set, of a transformer and a switch with some resistors on it to give it low, medium, and high brightness settings. According to the former owner, the Halolight didn't work. Could be the transformer, it could be the resistors, could be the switch, or it could be the tube. The tube disconnects this plug here, and the tube is now disconnected. This is for the Halolight circuit power, and it plugs in right next to the power switch. The transformer bracket is held in with a couple 1/4-inch socket head screws. Hi, this is Mr. Brown. The way YouTube's algorithm works in pushing this video onto other people's feeds, liking and subscribing are very important, but they also look at commenting as a measure of engagement. If you want to help out the channel, please like, subscribe, and comment. Thank you. In this section, I would like to answer 3 questions. What circuit did they use to power the lamp for the Halolight feature? What is the risk profile for getting electrocuted while working on an operating Halolight circuit? And finally, roughly, what is the power rating of the Halolight tube, and by extension, how bright could it possibly be? Let's briefly look at the Halolight circuit. 120 volts comes into the primary through a fuse. The secondary is a 860 volt winding center tapped. That's important because the center tap connects to the frame, which would make the frame live with respect to the output. In other words, don't touch it while you're touching the tube. Power is delivered to the tube through 2 current limiting resistors, 33K and 33K, each 2 watts. For dimming, for the high setting, both resistors are shunted. For the medium setting, 1 resistor is in the circuit. For the low setting, both resistors are in the circuit. According to the schematic, it's 100K 1 watt and 150K, but what I'm finding is 100K 1 watt and 56K 2 watts. Assuming neither one of them is in the circuit, in other words, the Halolight is at full brightness, then all the current is going through these 2 resistors. Using Ohm's law, assuming worst case that they're actually dissipating 2 watts, that would be 7.8 milliamps with a voltage drop of 256 volts. At full brightness, the tube is seeing about 346 volts, current limited at 7.8 milliamps. The total wattage of the Halolight tube is about 2.7 watts, not exactly a very bright bulb. Whatever solution is chosen to restore the Halolight function, it shouldn't be any brighter than about a 3-watt fluorescent lamp. Suppose I want to test the circuit, and suppose I don't want to put my multimeter directly across an 800 plus volt circuit. What I could do is temporarily solder a dummy load resistor across the Halolight terminals and measure the voltage across that resistor. I would need a resistor that would draw about 7.8 milliamps with 346 volts across it. That would be about 44.4K. I would use a 47K resistor rated at 3 watts or more. Using Ohm's law to figure out the voltages in this voltage divider circuit, I would get these values. With a 47K load resistor, I should measure 358 volts across the load resistor in the high brightness setting, 239 volts in the medium brightness setting, and 150 volts in the low brightness setting. Of course, these could be off by plus or minus 10%, and it would make no difference except in the low brightness setting. If the voltage was very low, the gas might not ionize properly and you'd get flickering. Before testing the output voltages, I measured the transformer and resistors for continuity and resistance. The fuse is good. The primary of the transformer is open, which explains why the Halolight doesn't work. The transformer is cooked. The secondary is good, both sides of it, not that it makes any difference. And all the resistors are within tolerance. They're all 10% resistors, they're all within tolerance. So the reason why the Halolight doesn't work is a faulty transformer. Can I get a 860 volt transformer? Probably. Is it really worth it? Could I do a DC to DC converter, which gives me roughly 350 volts current limited? Or I could say, forget it, and just use a piece of LED strip. Interesting choices ahead. Whatever happens, I would certainly want to salvage this selector switch and the way it's mounted into the TV. I don't know. The more I think about it, the less I'm liking the idea of acquiring an 860 volt transformer. To disengage the chassis from the cabinet, I've removed the two screws that hold on the VHF tuner input, right there. I've disconnected the tuner plug and the grounding strap. I've taken out the plug for the deflection yoke, disconnected the plug for the front panel. This is the wire from the Halolight that's already disconnected. I'll have to take off the two screws that hold on the safety interlock. That's just one screw. I'll have to take out that one screw for the antenna input. And what's left, two screws that go into those nylon bushings. One over there and one over there. Pull off the connector terminals from the speakers. The speakers are wired in series, so you only have to pull out two and not the connection between the speakers. Back the wires up through the hole in the lower chamber so they don't get caught when the chassis is finally removed. And now that the chassis is partway out, disconnect the high voltage anode. Normally I would attempt to discharge it, but I'm certain it's not holding any charge because I've had this for a couple weeks and it hasn't been powered up, so there's not going to be any charge in it. And the great reveal. There's one side of the chassis. I love how it stands by itself, though I'll probably lay it down when I am actually working on it. The nice thing about this is everything is relatively spread out. I've worked on a similar chassis, an RCA, where everything was not spread out. I can also take that paper out. I don't know why anybody would put paper in. I don't think it contains anything but more paper. One thing is this strap. This strap is not on the CRT. That is not a good thing. It means the CRT is being held up with one strap. Okay, I think I know what that's about. It's cracked. That means at any point the CRT could fall. That's not a good thing. Yeah, that's very serious actually. Now it makes sense why someone at some point put all this paper in. It was to pad the CRT in case it fell. Unfortunately, it would not have helped, because if the CRT shifted suddenly, the weight would have been on the neck of the picture tube, which would have sheared off, ending the picture tube with quite a pop. I wonder how I'm going to get this in. Is that supposed to clip into this metal? There was a nylon or plastic clip that's supposed to fit into that keyhole. And with that gone, and that one questionable, well, questionable for now, there has to be a smart way to remediate that. This TV has an interesting problem. Please check back in a few weeks for part 2 to see what happens next. I hope you enjoyed this video from Mr. Brown's Basement. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more interesting and unusual videos. And as always, thank you for watching.